we identify as service providers if what we're seeing in our young people is a result of chronic stress, hormones, or trauma? Because I can't tell the difference sometimes. And how do we help young people, especially middle schoolers, deal with chronic stress?
I do have to say, so I'm not a developmental psychologist, but I do have an elementary school kid and a middle school kid. And I think I've just worked with my children. So I can tell you a little bit about that. And I've done some readings on mindfulness in middle schoolers. When it comes to chronic stress, it's the middle school period that's been identified as where the peak of, not the peak, where that's where the chronic stress really starts building up in children. And so it's really important to identify that particular developmental period. So many developmental psychologists, even differences between girls and boys on math scores or math interests starts changing or starts shifting in middle school. So a lot of developmental psychologists will say that that's a critical period. The strategies that we've tend to use with our daughter, again, has been exposing her to psychotherapy. So there is still a lot of taboo within middle schoolers about talking about mental health issues, or even saying, you know what, I am going and seeing a psychologist. So when COVID happened, there was a lot of stress and anxiety around how are we going to come back to school. There was a lot of health anxiety as well. And so we had our daughter see a psychologist, and we openly discussed it with her, which allowed her to openly discuss it with her friends. And as a result, many of her friends then went to that psychologist. So I think many of the coping strategies that we adapt as adults in terms of seeking external help, whether that's psychotherapy or somebody she did mindfulness therapy for quite some time as well. But I think the thing that's slightly different, which is why I think it's really important to work with a child psychologist or developmental psychologist, is that the emotion regulation skills that we have as adults, children don't have. And I think that's an important thing to remember, is that we may say, you know what, stress is good for us, and you all get that point, but to explain that to a child will take a different set of skill sets. And so it's really important to tune into the needs of the children and meet them where they are at.